Hey, let's talk about my top favorite games that I played solo over the last month or so. I'm Clarence with Alien Meatballs. My channel is all about board games with a heavy focus on solo board gaming. Today I'm going to start the list off with a few honorable mentions. And the reason these are honorable mentions is because these are some of the fun games I played over the last month I didn't play solo. I played a multiplayer with my family, but they're really fun. So Cat Lady. Cat Lady is a really fun card game. You're trying to build sets and get points, but the catch is the market. Every turn when you get your cards, you got to get them. The market is a 3x3 grid of cards, and you have to take a whole row or whole column. So that's cool because you're getting some things that you don't want along with what you do want. Cubitos. This is a push your luck dice rolling racing game. It's really cool. Green Team Wins, fun party game, like simple little card party game that you can play with a lot of people pretty easy. Ready Set Bet is a fun horse racing game. You're basically gambling on horse racing, and it's exactly how it sounds. Works well. And then Alan and Bobby's Block and Guess. This is it's a party game. You have a card with a list of words, and you're trying to get your team to guess which word is yours. But the catch is on this one you just have blocks, like these little weird shaped blocks, and you can only use these. You have to use a few blocks and shape them to get your team to guess your word. And so that's the really unique part. Yeah, really cool. So those are the honorable mentions, and now on to my top 5 favorite games that I played over the last month or so. Starting with number 5 is White Castle. So White Castle, it's a cool game. You have 9 rounds only to try to get as much points as you can. Each round starts, there's it's like dice selection. So you'll roll these dice and put them in their spots, and then on your turn you're going to select the die, and then you're going to go place it onto different actions on the board, or you have some personal actions on your personal board. Now all of the different action spots on the board are going to pay you certain resources, but also some of them let you do other actions. So the main thing that you're trying to do is figure out what dice to get to go out and collect resources while also being able to do some of these other actions. Because if you can't chain together a few other actions on your turn, you just can't get enough points. And so it's really difficult because there's certain dice you want that will get you a lot of resources, but maybe they don't let you do enough extra actions, or you might have to plan out. You have kind of like sort of like an engine going on your personal board. So there's a few actions on your board, and throughout the game one of the things you can do is remove pieces. They're like little characters, but you remove them and go place them out on the main board, and those will collect you points at the end of the game. But that also, when you remove them, it makes one of your actions better. So the more of those you can remove every time you do that action, now it's better and better. And then it's also collecting you more points, but also you're trying to figure out how to chain together a lot of these things. So it's really cool. It's hard, it's tough, can really be tough on your brain. Solo works really well. It's easy. So it's if you like simple solo, it's pretty good at that. You just flip over a card or a couple cards sometimes, but it's really just flip over a card and block a spot it tells you what die to take for the AI and what spot to block. And yeah, it's cool if you like a crunchy game that plays pretty quick, unless you could AI, AP, analysis paralysis. You could sit there and think about it forever, but not considering that, you could play it really quick. Yeah, so that's White Castle. Number 4 is Redwood. This is probably one of the most unique ones, kind of. So in Redwood, you have a big map on the ground, and it's kind of divided up like a pizza. So all these like little triangle slices, and each triangle is a type of like land or area, like maybe mountains or desert or whatever. And then throughout there, spatial, like just in different spaces, there's no like, other than the pizza, there's no like little grid spots. It's just open space. And then there will be like flowers, different animals. And so what you're doing in this game is you're trying to do kind of standard stuff like collect certain plants and animals and get your points. But what's hard about it On your turn, you have to pick 2 like stencils, kind of like templates. These templates are, so the first one is the path that your minis, you have a mini out on the map, and that mini is going to walk in a certain path. Well, you're picking a path that's kind of like a weird shaped ruler, like a stencil. And so you'll have some long curves, some like short curves, some twisty curves. And so you have to pick the path that you want, the path stencil, and then you have to pick a second stencil that is your cone of vision. So they're different shaped like triangles. And so once you pick those, and you can't grab them and like hold them up to the board to try to measure it out. You're just looking at them and trying to pick what 2 you're going to want. And then you take them, and now on your turn, you're locked into these and you have to use them. You take your path and you'll move your mini along that path. So where you still have some flexibilities, you can still walk them any direction you want. So you put the stencil down, you walk your mini along the path, and then at the end of that, then you take your cone of vision and you spin it whatever way you want. And whatever's in that cone is all of the resources you get. Well, it's not really resources, but it's like you're taking a picture of whatever animals were in that cone, whatever plants were in that cone, and then the backdrop of the terrain. And it's tough. It's easy to play, but it's tougher than you think to line that up right. Like if you just had to do 1, you could probably do it. But the fact that you have to do 2, if you were off at all on your path and you end up 1/8 of an inch this way, and then your cone, you just end up missing stuff. And it's like you really needed that little flower over here. And now you have to choose, well, okay, what do I want? The flower or the animal? Or maybe you say, you know what, that didn't work. I'm going to rotate back this way and take a picture a completely different direction, because that actually gets me something that will help. Like you're really like just trying to make things work sometimes, but it feels really cool when you line up and you take your picture. You're like, oh man, I got all of it. That's so awesome. So it's a really cool game. And then, yeah, like I said, at the end, all the stuff you're collecting is just to, do certain like set collections or meet certain objectives and things like that. But I would say the only downfall or thing that kind of bothered me a little bit was the setup. There's really a lot of stuff to set up. I'm hoping, because the first time I played it a few times, but like when you first set it up, you literally have to like set up these boards and put pegs in them. That took a long time. Some of that I was able to keep together and put into the box, but there's still a lot of stuff setting up and all these stencils and things. So just know there's some setup that goes into it. But Redwood is it's a cool game. It's unique. If anything keeps me from playing it, it'll be like maybe the setup and just how much is going on for what the game is. So I'm not sure yet, but it is fun and different. All right, so my number 3 is Carson City. And this one, I think this is an older game. It's like, this one's called Carson City. It's like the big box version. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure this was like I got it on Kickstarter or crowdfunding, but it's been out before, so I'm not sure of its history. Carson City, essentially, you're building out this little city, and you're going to be trying to score points based on your different buildings and placing them correctly. It's got a lot of unique, cool stuff though that makes it like just more special than other games I've played like this. So on your turn, the first thing you do is there's a market of characters, and each one of these characters is going to give you a bonus. And so at the beginning of your turn, you're going to grab a character that you want to use for that turn, and maybe this one gives you extra money, or maybe it gives you extra firepower, or lets you get some extra points off of scoring. So pick the character that you want, and now you move to the next phase, which is essentially like worker placement. And so you have a certain amount of workers for the round, and you're going to start taking turns placing workers out on the board. Then you go down all the actions, acting out all of the actions where there's workers. Okay, and so the things you're trying to do, you might be trying to build certain buildings to put out, or you might be trying to buy plots of land, or build roads, or hire some extra firepower, or just try to do some scoring spots. Now where it starts to like kind of the meat of the game is for example, some of the buildings you're trying to build is like, maybe you want to build a mine. You'll buy a mine and you'll place it out on the board, and the more mountains that you have around this mine, the more money it's going to pay you at the end of the round. Because at the end of the round, all of your buildings are going to do their thing and pay you money. So like, yeah, mines want to get by mountains. Ranches, you actually want to put out and have the most open space around your ranches. Yeah, it's cool. But so then also all of your buildings you put out there, they need to have roads. Like you have to be next to a road. So then you might have to spend one of your actions to get some more roads. And it feels pretty tight. Like you're like, okay, I need some roads. I want to get this building, but I don't have any more land. So I need to go get a plot of land. So, but also you can fight each other. And this is where it really starts to like get kind of crunchy on your brain because so say there's a market of buildings you can buy. So there might actually be two mines in this market. If you really want to mine, one might cost $3, one might cost $10. Well, everyone's going to be fighting over the three. So if you place your worker on the $3 mine, someone else might do that also. In this case, the AI, they'll place their worker there too. If there's multiple workers there, you now have to battle. And the way a battle works is throughout the game, you'll be collecting these guns, and that's like your combat power. So when you do a battle, you will add up your guns, but then you also add up how many workers you saved. So during the round, say if I have 5 workers, if I only go to like 2 action spots and I leave 3 workers on my board, those 3 workers are going to add 3 to my combat power. And that can be a big deal. And then you also have a die, so there's a little randomness. So you're going to add up your combat power, how many workers you left behind, and then you roll a die and see what happens. But it's really interesting because yes, you can, on your turn, you can be spinning your workers and doing extra actions, but you're also trying to calculate, well, am I going to get battled? Do you think someone's going to battle? You can try to play the less aggressive places. You know, if you're doing good on money, maybe just go buy the $10 mine. Don't have to worry about combat as much, but you never fully know. And then you can also take your workers and just go place them on somebody else's building. So if I want to, I could just take my worker and put it on your mine or the AI's mine. And at the end of the round, when you're collecting income, if we battle and I win, I take half of your income. And yeah, it gets really interesting figuring out how you want to, what buildings or what you want to do when, and that combat power just adds in such a tricky element to building out this city, and it works well. Now the AI, it's good. It works really good, but there's kind of a lot to it. You have little flow charts and stuff to try to figure out sometimes what the AI is going to do. As you learn it, it gets pretty fluid and simple, but or not simple, but like intuitive a little bit. But you still kind of have the rule book open. You're like, okay, so the AI on these turns wants to do this, but you start to figure it out. You start to learn, like, okay, like your little rules, like the AI always wants to do whatever is going to be closest to their other stuff, or make the most money but give you the less money, require them to build the least roads, stuff like that. So you start to get it, and then it becomes intuitive. But it's a lot. If you don't like AIs that are more than just flipping a card and doing an action and moving on, that might hold you back. You are technically just flipping a card, but then you have to use these like little rules to figure out what they actually do. It's a great game though. Really cool. That's Carson City. So my number 2 favorite game I played over the last month or so was Leviathan Wilds. This game is a co-op game. You can play solo really easy. You has like official solo rules, but I just played 2-handed co-op. It was easy enough. And then so on this game, it's really thematic, fun. Basically, you're like mountain climbing. You're gonna be jumping, like climbing up these like mountains, jumping up spaces, maybe like gliding down a couple mountain or spaces to grab on to get to this part of a mountain. But the catch is, you're not actually on mountains. These mountains are living creatures. They're these big Leviathan like monster things, and they attack you at the end of every round. At the beginning of the round, you're gonna flip over a card, and it will tell you how this Leviathan's gonna attack you at the end of the round. So maybe it's gonna hit you right where you're at. Maybe it's gonna attack the spaces under where you're currently at. And so then you know, like, okay, well, I need to do this and this, and then I need to get out of that space or it's gonna hit me. And then your ultimate objective, what you're trying to do, is there's all these little crystals. So the Leviathans are actually, they're nice and friendly, but there's all these crystals stuck on their body, and it's making them crazy and enraged. So you're going through and trying to go mine these crystals off of them and save them, and then they become friendly again. And yeah, it's super cool. So the Leviathan, there's different monsters, basically like levels that you're gonna play, and they all have their own deck of cards for like how they attack. When you're playing every round, one of those attack cards is going to become stronger. Then you shuffle them up, play again through a round. So the longer it takes you to beat the level, the stronger these attacks are getting. And so your rate, you can't just go slow. You're trying to figure out how to get here and do certain things fast enough, because it just gets harder and harder until you die. Like the first time I played, I won, but it was barely. Like one of my characters had died, and then that means you have like one chance left to win, and then we pulled it off. So like the timing it's really good. But yeah, all your Leviathans, they have their own deck of cards. So you have all these different levels that will have, a different map, as well as the different deck of cards for like their attacks. And then you have all these different characters you can pick out of, and they all have their own deck of cards. And the cards are cool. So like your character might be really good at climbing specifically. Like maybe they can jump really far and make these long glides and things, or maybe they're just better at mining, or getting certain types of crystals. And so like there's these two different crystals you're trying to get. There's like regular crystals, you can just go mine them. They're dice. You do a certain amount of strength and knock off the dice until you can get rid of it. But there's another kind of crystal. I think it's called like blight. During the game, you'll be taking damage and your health bar will be going down. But whenever you mine those blight crystals, you take damage. Unless you have like some protection, you take damage the other way. It shortens your health bar. And there's a lot of ways to like heal up your health, but not your blight. So as your blight, you keep taking more and more blight, your health bar is getting shorter and shorter. Now when you have less health to work with. And that's interesting, because you just fill this timer of you're just getting weaker and weaker while you're playing the game. It's fun. It's cool. You have a lot of card play. So like there's certain cards that are going to let you jump certain ways, but all the cards also might have like little protection symbols. Like maybe if you play this card this round, you won't take any blight. And so there's a lot of like these double use card plays trying to figure out like, okay, well, this will really get me over here to this blight thing, but I really need to play the card that protects me from blight this round, or the card that protects me from these yellow danger spots, because I'm going to cross over 2 danger spots. And it's very puzzly like that and cool, but simple, easy to get into. And yes, highly recommend Leviathan Wilds. It's really fun co-op. It's really fun. So I haven't played it co-op. It's a co-op game, but it works great solo. I love it. And my number one game that I played over the last month or so is RollPlayer Adventures. I've had this game for a while, played it a long time ago, took some time off, and now I started a new campaign. RollPlayer Adventures, if you've played like the regular RollPlayer, you'll be familiar with the dice mechanic. Because basically it's the same dice mechanic, but thrown into a big campaign story mode. So you're going to be going through these levels. Each level has its own story, like book, and then there's a whole campaign. You'll play a bunch of scenarios back to back. So what you're doing in a campaign is you have a little world map, and you'll be walking around this world map, going to different locations, and then every location you go to, you're going to open up the book and read a little, like the next part of the story that goes on there, and then you're going to have like either a skill test or like a battle, or a skill test and a battle, not like a battle. And then they're both really the same kind of test, but so say maybe you want to like you come up to a guard and you want to sneak past them. If you pass that test, maybe you get past them, you're good, move on to the next part. If you don't, you might end up having to fight the guard. The skill test and battle test work really similarly, but a couple small differences. But the base thing is, when you're taking these tests, whether it's a test or a battle, there's going to be a little dice puzzle. So maybe it says you need to get a red 5, a white 1, a blue anything, 2 black 2s, and you'll have this like row of dice that you're trying to get, and then you're going to draw a certain amount of dice out of a bag randomly and roll them. So you might not get any of the dice colors you need, or you might get lucky and get some of them. You might get some of the numbers that you need, and some you don't. But then you have a deck of cards, and your cards let you do cool stuff like, hey, this card lets me change any white die to a blue die, or any blue die can go +1 or 2. And you have all these different cards that are like that, and you're trying to play them to manipulate your dice to accomplish these puzzles. If you fail the puzzle, it's just gonna, you still keep moving forward through the story. It's gonna change things in your story, and so you keep moving forward. So that's cool. But sometimes when you win the puzzles, you're gonna gain stuff too. So it's really good to gain. But yeah, the puzzle mechanic is it's so fun. It's so fun to figure out this puzzle, and then some of your cards are going to be exhausting. So within a scenario, some of your cards you play them and they get exhausted for the whole scenario, and then the rest might just get exhausted for just that test. And then when you're done with the test, you get the cards back. So while you're playing, say there's a couple rounds in a battle you're doing, you might say, man, I got the perfect die, lets me flip this white to its opposite side and I could just win. But also I got 3 more locations to go to in this scenario. That's a really powerful card. I don't know if I want to use it yet. And it's one that you're going to lose. So you got all these things you're thinking through to try to puzzle out the dice, flip things over, try to manage your cards and how many you're going to need. It's really cool though. So the one, I don't know if it's a knock. The one, so this game is dice. It's random, right? You theoretically could roll your dice and get nothing and not have the cards you need to flip. If you think that might bother you, you might hate this game. But if you're okay with randomness, bad luck might just happen, this game is really fun. It's so fun to have a puzzly game like this that also has this really cool narrative and story you're going through. Such a good mix of it. So what I found is there was a point where it seemed like I was just losing and losing. And the one downfall is like you're building up experience. And as you spend this experience at the end of your games to buy more cards and get stronger. But if you die in a scenario, you lose like most of that experience. So it feels really bad to die because you didn't have the cards you needed to manipulate, and then also lose all of your experience that gives you better cards or more cards. So that part kind of sucks, but I understand like that in the end, I think it's okay. You just move on to your next scenario and you have other ways to get other cards and things. And so I think it really is okay. But there was a point where I lost like 3 times in a row, and I even went on BGG and I saw like other people complaining. And I think it's going to really come down to like sometimes luck. Like people who haven't experienced that, they just didn't experience the bad luck where like you did everything you could and lost a bunch and kept losing your experience. You feel like you get in a rut. What I did was I got into a rut. And then there was another point where I was about to lose my battle by one die flip. I was like, you know what? Like, forget this. I just want to have fun. I got an adrenaline boost or something, or an angel came down and helped me. Like, I'm winning this battle because I had a stack of experience. I wasn't going to lose my experience. And so, yeah, I mean, essentially I cheated. But it's either that or just keep losing and then kind of having a bad time. So if you're okay with bending the rules a little bit, but honestly, if you think about it, the game cannot add rules for like bad luck. If somebody, which can happen, just lose 5 games in a row for no fault of their own, I don't think the game would really want you to just sit there and just die over and over. And they can't just make rules for those odd scenarios. So if that's happening and you're okay with like giving yourself a little bonus to try to balance the game out in that way, it's fun. Just keep moving forward. Or you could just, if you don't care about losing, you could just die and you still play the game. So you could just die and not get your stuff. When you do die, even though you lose the experience, you do get these extra powerful cards to try to help you out. They're one-time use. So what kind of sucks is you could easily get this really powerful card that lets you get 3 red dice and roll them, and maybe you just needed 1 red 3. You could roll all 3 red dice and not get what you needed. Like, that can happen. So the super powerful cards to help you can still become useless. So the game has randomness. I still highly recommend it. If you're okay with randomness, and like what I said, it's an amazing game. Small little house rules here and there if you need it to balance out horrible streaks of bad luck. And if you're okay with that, like, it's amazing. The story's fun. The puzzling mechanic of the dice, really take away the campaign, just do these dice puzzles. That's really the meat of it. It's super fun. But yeah, that's it. So those are my favorite games that I've been playing over the last month. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. The channel is Alien Meatballs. If you want to get notified when I put up my next video, just hit subscribe, notify with that little bell. and like my channel. It helps me, more people will see my video, and it will let you know when I put up another video. I'd really appreciate that. And otherwise, yeah, thanks so much. See you later.